Welcome everyone to part 6 of the FireBlade Revival series. In the last episode we did some long awaited maintenance by replacing the spark plugs, the oil, and we did clean and lubricate the chain. Now we're going to fix this damaged radiator. It's clear that the previous owner laid this bike down, and seeing as how the tab is totally broken off, I'd say they crashed pretty hard. Anyway, the radiator may not be able to be fixed, so instead I'm going to just replace it. A brand new OEM radiator costs $430, so instead I found this brand new aftermarket one on eBay for just $87. Now usually I don't buy eBay parts for my bikes, but in the interest of keeping the costs as low as possible, I didn't really have a choice. And if I'm being completely honest with you guys, it's just a radiator, and it comes with a 1-year warranty. I really am not worried about it. Anyway, let's go ahead and remove the old broken radiator so we can put on the brand new one. Before we remove the radiator, we need to drain the coolant. Draining the coolant is pretty straightforward. It just requires an 8mm socket, and you can just remove the bolt off the water pump and watch it all drain out. Now you can open the cap to have it drain a little bit quicker too, and another good idea is to have the cap half off so it doesn't spray coolant all over the place. It's really up to you. Now I just need to remove these hoses. A screwdriver to loosen the clamps and some needle nose pliers make this an easy job. Oh, and I cannot forget to unplug the fan wire as well. Did you know that although the CBR929 is similar to the 954, the 954 has tons of little improvements, such as this higher capacity radiator with modified internal cooling paths, which supposedly increase the efficiency by 5% under a wide range of riding conditions. It's all the little details like that which helped keep Honda on top during the early 2000s. They were just constantly improving an already an amazing design. And here we go, finally the radiator is off. Compared to the old one, this new one is a perfect match. All that's left to do now is to transfer over the fan. Fun little fact, I actually filmed me replacing the fan, but it was so hot out that day that my camera overheated, so the footage was lost. But that's okay. With the power of editing, you can see the fan is mounted perfectly onto the new radiator. Installation of the new radiator is pretty straightforward. Literally, it's just reversal of the removal process. I first pushed a hose onto it to help hold it in place, and then I started sliding on the rest of the hoses. And don't worry, I did not forget to drain the reservoir as well. With everything connected and tightened down, it's time to flush out the system using distilled water. I simply filled it up as it was draining, then I stopped it from draining and filled it up again and let the bike run. I ran it with the cap off so I could keep adding more distilled water as it used it. Then I let it cool down and ran it with the cap on after it got to temperature. After it got to temperature a couple of times, I let the engine cool down, then drained it out completely and repeated the process once more. Okay, so this is the coolant I'm going to be using. This is like $9 at Walmart. Very basic stuff. The main thing you want to make sure when you're ordering coolant is that it says that it's ethylene glycol or whatever. If it's that, then it's good. And also you want to make sure it has rust inhibitors, which this one does say at the top there. Sorry, my phone's screwed up. So anyway, we're gonna add this in, and this is pretty much the same thing as OEM Honda coolant. I mean, it's not that much different. If I was gonna be putting coolant into a super expensive brand new bike, of course I'd go Honda, but for this bike, this stuff will do just fine. You can trust me on this one, guys. This coolant is perfectly fine for this bike, especially one in this condition. I did my research, and this coolant meets all the requirements that Honda has for the coolant for the CBR954. Anyway, it's pre-mixed, so I get to just add it in until it's topped off. I don't have to worry about adding and mixing water, which I prefer. So I don't have a funnel that can actually reach that, but I do have a Gatorade bottle, which this is filled with coolant. I rinsed it out with some distilled water, let it dry in the sun for a couple hours, and now I'm just adding coolant to it, and then I just add it in like this. Not the best way to do it, but it works. Now that the radiator is completely done and the fluid is flushed, here's proof that the fan is working perfectly fine. It took a while for this bike to reach this temperature even during this 90-degree day, and it quickly went down to a normal riding temperature after a few seconds with the fan on. Oh, and earlier I was able to shine up this exhaust and re-rivet it. Although it is leaking a little, it is still much improved over what it was before. Now we have one more job to do today, and that's the brakes. The brake fluid on this bike is dark brown and needs to be replaced. But before doing that, I went ahead and removed the caliper and decided to give it a good cleaning. I re-greased all the pins and slides for it to help function properly. There was a bit of rust left behind, and knocking all that away will only help this bike. I also did this on the front brakes as well, but I did not film it. I do plan on replacing the brake pads in the future, but there's still some life left in the ones currently in it, so I'll leave it for now. Next, I need to remove the old brake fluid and add in the new brake fluid. To do this, I just have to remove the cap off the reservoir and top it off with brand new fluid. Now I need to bleed them. I originally used this vacuum bleeder to help suck the old fluid out while cracking open the bleeder with an 8mm wrench. Oh, and yes, I had to blast this bleeder with penetrating fluid to get it to crack loose. After trying to vacuum out most of the old fluid, I moved on to the traditional method of pumping the brake and loosen the bleeder and repeating. I kept going until the fluid was crystal clear. I now repeated the same thing on the front. This time I was a bit cautious and put some towels down to protect the dashboard and paint. Brake fluid is very nasty stuff. With the reservoir cap removed, I went on to bleed the brakes. I used the same method on the front as I did with the rear, starting with the vacuum bleeder. Then I finished up with the traditional method of bleeding brakes. I also was sure to repeat this on the other side, and I went back and forth a couple times off camera doing each side again to make sure the only fluid coming out was crystal clear fluid. As you can see, the brake reservoir is full of fresh, clean, brand new brake fluid. Now all that's left is to replace the cap and secure the screws back into place. Thank you all so much for watching. We got a massive amount done in this episode, and now all the maintenance items I wanted done are completed. I'll see you all in the next episode. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good one.
Sick news, pull your little arrows out. Let me live my life, the one I'd better lead. All the plans of fantasies, and we looked at them 11 ways. You said, look at me, I looked away.